Behind every uniform, beyond every fence of twisted wire, lived a human story that history struggles to fully capture. The Second World War created millions of prisoners, soldiers who had fought with courage, only to find themselves stripped of weapons, dignity, and often hope itself. When a soldier raised his hands in surrender, his war didn't end. It transformed into a different kind of battle, a battle for survival, for sanity, for the preservation of humanity in places designed to strip it away. These men came from farms in Iowa, villages in Yorkshire, mountains in Bavaria, and steppes of Russia. They were teachers, factory workers, sons, fathers, ordinary people caught in an extraordinary tragedy that would test the very limits of human endurance. The Geneva Conventions promised humane treatment, but paper means little when hatred runs deep and resources grow scarce. Some prisoners found themselves in camps where their captors, despite the uniform they wore, still recognized their shared humanity. Others weren't so fortunate. They faced guards who saw enemies rather than men, who had been taught that mercy was weakness and compassion was betrayal of their cause. In the stalags of Germany, Allied airmen shared cramped barracks, their bodies growing thin while their spirits fought to remain strong. They created elaborate escape plans, knowing that freedom was worth any risk. The Great Escape from Stalag Luft 3 became legendary, though it cost many brave men their lives. They carved chess pieces from scraps of wood, fashioned playing cards from cardboard, wrote letters on smuggled paper, and told stories of home until those memories became more real than the wire that surrounded them. They organized secret schools, teaching languages and skills to keep their minds sharp against the numbing routine of captivity. Soviet prisoners faced perhaps the harshest treatment of all. Viewed by their captors as subhuman, millions died from starvation, disease, and execution. The Nazi regime deliberately starved Soviet POWs, seeing them as expendable slaves rather than protected prisoners of war. Yet, even in these darkest places, acts of kindness flickered like candles in the wind. A guard who looked away while bread was shared, a doctor who risked everything to treat the sick, prisoners who carried their weaker comrades when they could barely walk themselves. American prisoners in the Pacific faced different horrors. The Bataan Death March, the hell ships that transported them to Japan, the slave labor in mines and factories. These experiences scarred survivors for life. Many would never speak of what they endured, carrying their trauma in silence for decades. The psychological wounds ran deeper than physical hunger. Men who had led charges across battlefields found themselves powerless, dependent on their enemies for their very survival. Some broke under the weight of despair, losing themselves to madness or despair. Others discovered reserves of strength they never knew they possessed. They formed brotherhoods that transcended nationality and rank, learning that in the face of dehumanization, maintaining humanity becomes an act of rebellion. Prison camps developed their own cultures, their own hierarchies, their own unwritten rules of survival. Senior officers maintained discipline and morale. Chaplains held secret services, keeping faith alive in faithless places. Artists sketched on whatever materials they could find, creating beauty in the midst of ugliness. Musicians hummed melodies that reminded them of better times. Liberation brought its own challenges. Freedom was not simply the opening of gates. It was the long journey back to a world that had continued without them. Some returned to families who had grieved them as dead, experiencing the surreal joy of resurrection. Others came home to find their loved ones gone, their old lives scattered like leaves in an autumn wind. Many struggled with survivor's guilt, wondering why they had lived when so many others had perished. These prisoners teach us that courage isn't just found in the charge across a battlefield. It's found in the quiet determination to remain human when everything around you seeks to make you less. It's found in sharing your last piece of bread, in refusing to betray a fellow prisoner, in holding on to hope when hope seems foolish, in maintaining dignity when dignity is under constant assault. Their stories remind us that behind every historical statistic was a beating heart, a thinking mind, a soul that mattered. They were not just numbers in a war, but individuals who endured, who survived, who carried forward the flame of human dignity through humanity's darkest hour. In remembering them, we honor not just their sacrifice, but their resilience and we commit ourselves to ensuring that such darkness never falls across our world again. The legacy of these prisoners extends far beyond the barbed wire that once confined them. When the war ended, many survivors dedicated their lives to ensuring the world would never forget. They testified at war crimes tribunals, wrote memoirs that brought tears to readers' eyes, and spoke at schools where young faces listened in stunned silence to stories of unimaginable hardship. Some channeled their experiences into advocacy for human rights, becoming voices for the voiceless in conflicts around the globe. Others found peace in quiet lives, treasuring simple freedoms that most take for granted: the ability to walk outside without permission, to eat when hungry, to embrace loved ones without fear. Their children and grandchildren carry forward their stories, understanding that memory is a sacred trust. In museums and memorials worldwide, their photographs stare back at us, young faces frozen in time, eyes that witnessed humanity at its worst, yet somehow retained faith in its capacity for good. These men remind us that freedom is not free, that dignity can survive the cruelest circumstances, and that even in war's darkest chapters, the human spirit can find ways to shine. Their courage, under the most extreme duress, stands as an eternal testament to the unbreakable nature of hope itself.